right. Eric says, put all your questions here in the chat or the Q&A so that we can make sure and address them tonight. Doing something a little bit different today than we normally do. This is, I think, our 7th or 8th webinar we've done. And normally we start with a topic and we kind of run through a script of what we think on that topic, and then we take questions at the end. Today we're going to do something a little different and just take your questions from the beginning, hopefully catch up with anything we've missed over these past number of webinars that we've done. So we do have our first question in there. Go ahead and just throw your questions into the chat box. Feel free to throw them in the question and answer. Any of those are good places, and we will keep track of those as we go here to make sure that we address all of them. So looks like we have our first one. Eric, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, for sure. So Shelly is asking, do you currently have any properties in Denver? So I do own a property in Denver, not currently doing vacation rentals just because of some HOA restrictions in place, but Jake also has a couple properties in the Denver area, one of which he's been doing on Airbnb for midterm rentals, so longer, 30 days or longer, because then you are able to avoid some of the restrictions in place with the short-term rental permit and requiring that it's your primary residence. So between the two of us, we've currently got 3 properties in the Denver area. And Shelly's also asking whether we purchase or rent those. And Shelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're asking sort of about the, call it Airbnb or short-term rental arbitrage strategy, where you rent a property for a year and then do short-term rental with it. So on all of these properties, we do purchase them, although going the rental route and kind of doing a sublease model is something we've thrown around and may do here in the future.
All right, so I see that we're starting to get quite a few questions in here. It looks like we've got 11 participants on. I'm going to go ahead and kind of officially kick us off here and get going. So my name is Jake Cohen. My partner here is Eric Mayhews. We have been doing Airbnb for the last 2.5 years ourselves. Eric also worked for a national vacation rental management company, so he has quite a bit of experience on a much larger scale than just doing it himself. I currently own 5 units up in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and then have the 1 unit in Denver that I rent on Airbnb. We manage 3 other units for other folks. And really our goal with this whole presentation and what we're doing with Master Vacation Rentals is really just to try and help everyone out and show an easier path than maybe we walked with our our first couple vacation rentals that we did. We do have a website. It's mastervacationrentals.com. This is not a sales pitch tonight, but if you do have questions and you're looking for some of the information that we're referring to tonight, I'll point out a couple things. Again, the website is mastervacationrentals.com. We do have a list of essential products on here. So all of our favorite products that we've found over the number of properties that we manage, and what we look for in these products is basically efficiency. So good products that look great, that don't cost you a huge amount of money. We also have a page, recommended services, that goes into the additional softwares, insurances, pricing software, all kinds of different things that we use. We have articles on there, and then free training. So if this is your first webinar that you've seen with us, you can go to our free training page and you can see our past webinars. Each of those had a specific topic that we went through, specifically automating your business, managing your properties, pricing your properties, things like that. So if you have any particular questions that we don't get to address tonight, there is a wealth of information on our website. So let's go ahead and dive into these questions. I'm excited to see so many people posting in here. We weren't sure how many people were going to be, shy about posting. So we're going to start at the top here. And Shelly posted about the properties in Denver. Like Eric said, I currently have one property that I'm renting in the Denver area on Airbnb. It's what I call a midterm rental. The reason I call it a midterm rental is because I rent it for 30 days or more. I'm going to go ahead and show you that listing. Go to my hosting dashboard and bring it up for you. But Denver has some pretty strict policies about renting property that's not your primary residence. So what I decided to do was work around that policy. The policy for short-term rentals in Denver is anything over 30 days is not considered a short-term rental. So this is my listing here. New 30-day pet-friendly house. We'll go to the preview so you guys can see what it looks like on Airbnb. But basically, I'm renting this for a minimum of 30 days. My first reservation on this property was for 4 months. It was approximately $4,000 a month. And my second reservation, which has not started yet, is for about 3 months at about $3,500 a month. This is for a furnished property. It is in the Sunnyside neighborhood, for those of you that are familiar with it. I'll go ahead and click on some of these pictures so you can get an idea. It's a small 3-bed, 2-bath house. It's well laid out, efficient use of space. It's about 1,200 square feet. It has a really nice backyard with a garage and, washer dryer. Nice garage here. You can see our upstairs bathroom. It's nothing fancy, but it's a nice, well-kept property. I was amazed at how quickly it rented and how easy it was to rent. So if you're interested in renting in Denver, that may be a good option if you don't own or occupy your property. Let's see. So the next question on there was, what are you thinking about the future and the potential recession? This is something that comes up often. There is always a recession in the future. It's just a question of when. So most real estate investors, I would say, who are very experienced, they realize there's going to be up and downs in the market, and they don't try and time anything. They just play their strategy, realize that they're not going to purchase properties that are going to be right on the line of whether they're going to cost them money. They make sure that they have enough money to withstand that, say, 10% drop in rents or something like that. My properties up in Steamboat Springs, I feel like, are well insulated in the sense that folks from Denver can get to Steamboat very easily, and those folks may normally take trips to Hawaii or to Europe or to the Bahamas for their big trip of the year. If we go into a recession, they're going to say, you know what, let's spend a week in Steamboat as opposed to a week in Hawaii or in the Bahamas. So I feel like Colorado in general is fairly well insulated just because we have a large population center in Denver and Colorado Springs that feeds the subsidiary markets. And we're also a destination. Denver is very hot. Obviously, most of you are probably from the Denver or Colorado Springs area, and it's definitely a hot market. I'm sure you've all seen the magazine articles, etc. Eric, do you have anything else to chime in on that?
I think, just the strategy you implement needs to, you need to feel confident in its ability to perform, in a down market. And like you mentioned, having If you have a place that's reasonably accessible by a large number of people and is still going to be popular for years to come, I think you're in a good spot. I think people can get in over their head if you go very high end luxury and your model only works if you're hitting 70% occupancy at super high rates. I think you need to have a little flexibility in your numbers and don't run your model just to convince yourself to purchase something. You want to run conservative numbers so you're not getting in over your head, when the market softens.
And I think there's also something to be said for, a lot of people jump into Airbnb with an extra bedroom or a extra unit that maybe is part of their property. I think that's a great way to kind of test the market. If you're not sure about Airbnb, try renting a room, see if this is something you enjoy doing. It is more work than doing a long-term rental. But I will tell you from my experience of owning long-term rentals and short-term rentals, I very much prefer a short-term rental because the folks I'm renting to are folks that I identify well with. They want the things that I want. I can put in a very nice kitchen and feel very comfortable in the property. I'm showing you another one of my properties in Steamboat Springs, and it allows me to feel like I can furnish the property and do the things that I want in the property that I would want myself, as opposed to worrying about things getting ruined. So we'll go ahead and move on. Andrew sent in thoughts on rental arbitrage. I think rental arbitrage can be a great play. I think it really depends on your personality if that's something that fits you or not. Personally, I'm not someone who wants to go convince people to rent their property to me to do something that they maybe wouldn't want to do in that property. That being said, Eric and I have talked about future potential business for us would be to potentially go out and do some rental arbitrage. But we would target people that are open-minded about a short-term rental. And it really depends on where you are, obviously. If you're going to one of the mountain towns where short-term rentals are allowed and encouraged, it's a lot easier to convince a landlord to rent to you. Whereas in Denver, it's not nearly as established, and there's a lot of rules against it. So I think you just have to feel out, how do you feel about it? I think there is money to be made in rental arbitrage, but you have to know what guests want. Do your research. Make sure that you're getting a property that's in really good condition, because you don't want to be constantly dealing with a landlord having to make repairs while your guests are there. That's going to cut into your profit.
Jake, we had Shelly had one other question about funding and structuring entities and sort of how we approach that. I don't know if you want to touch on that with sort of your entity structure that you've gone with, or do you want to?
Sure. Yeah. I currently use an LLC structure. The way I have it set up currently is I have a umbrella LLC. Trying to think if I have a diagram or something of this that I can show that would. Anyways, I have a LLC, one on top basically that I pay taxes through. And then I have a separate LLC for each property underneath that. That way, if I get sued, for example, on one property, they would have to take all of my assets from that property. Then they would try and breach my umbrella LLC. It's very unlikely. My real estate attorney has advised me many times that it's very unlikely that they would be able to breach that, as long as you do a good job of keeping your assets separate and doing a good job of accounting, so that everyone so that if anyone looked at your books, you're not sharing everything back and forth between the properties. I think that it's important to protect yourself. But if you're just starting out and you're buying either your first property or you're renting a unit in your house or a room in your house, I wouldn't focus on an LLC. I would get yourself a good umbrella liability policy. That's going to cost you maybe $300 for $1 million to $2 million of extra liability insurance. And that can kind of be your backup until you decide whether this is something you want to go ahead with and start forming LLCs and go that route. It is a little tedious, takes some time, takes some figuring out how you want things worded and how you want it structured. So hopefully that answers that question there. I think we're going to go back to Andrew here. Sorry, we're jumping around a little bit, but Andrew's asking about the Summit County market. Neither Eric or I currently own a property in Summit County. I've done quite a bit of research in Summit County, and when I purchased my properties in Steamboat, I was trying to decide between Steamboat and Summit County, and the numbers for me were substantially better in Steamboat than they were in Summit County. That was a couple of years ago. I continue to keep my eye on Summit County, and every now and then there is a property that comes up that seems to have numbers that will work. But it really depends, again, what you're looking for. I'm looking for a pretty high return on my properties because I have a investor partner and I need to pay them for their money. So it's not quite a situation for me where I can just break even for a couple of years. I need to be making a pretty good extra amount of money to make it make sense. If you're looking for a place that you can go up and enjoy, a few weeks a year and break even on, I would say that you can definitely find that in Summit County. The next question looks like, how do you hire and manage cleaning and maintenance staff? Anytime you talk about staff is difficult. It is hard. So as much as I would like to say that there are great resources out there, it's not super easy. I have a great husband and wife team up in Steamboat that clean my properties for me. And they also handle my 24-hour calls and basic maintenance tasks. Right before this call, Eric and I were talking about I'm doing a re-siding and windows project at my triplex, this unit that you're looking at currently on your screen. And we are a month overdue for it to be done. We're about $10,000 over budget, and it's difficult because it's in Steamboat Springs. I live 3 hours away, and it's very difficult to manage the contractors. So don't be afraid to pay a little bit more for someone that you really trust. And for cleaning, there are some resources out there. Properly.com is one of the best resources that I've seen for finding cleaning staff. My unit in Denver, I have not found a great cleaner that I love yet. I am on my third cleaner so far, and I expect a lot from my cleaners. I spent 5 years managing a hotel, and I expect my units to be cleaned like a hotel is cleaned. Every little hair on the floor is cleaned up. There's nothing anywhere that anyone could wipe a cloth across and find any dust. So I have a pretty high standard. There are a lot of great people out there, but a lot of times it takes 2, 3, 4 to get the right one for you. If you have more questions about that, I'm happy to show you my cleaning list. I could send that out to you. I like to use a checklist so that every small item that I want done gets done on my properties. Other than that, it's really just a matter of getting them on the same page. Once they're on the same page, it works like it's super easy. I use Smart B&B. That sends an email automatically to my cleaner. They confirm that they're available for that cleaning. And from there, basically everything just gets done for me. If there's any issues upon checkout, I get a text from them with pictures. Here's what happened. And I can deal with that with the guests. So it's not that hard to manage once you get a good cleaner and good maintenance staff. But finding that is always a challenge.
Yeah. We've got Andrew also asking about guest access. So we use programmable keyless entry. So you're able to send the guest a code for getting into the property. That is the cleanest, easiest way to make the experience easy for your guests. And then also, if you need to have cleaners and maintenance people going in to the property as well, they're gonna, you can set them up with a separate code so that you're able to make sure that they always have access when they need it. And then you can also track who's going in your property when, and that's really nice to have that ability versus dealing with a lockbox and somebody not replacing the key and you're not realizing until you get a midnight call that when your next guest isn't able to get into the property. So
and we are currently working with a new technology that I'm trialing right now. So I'm giving you a sneak peek here. We haven't done our full research on this yet, but the company is called Operto. Excuse me, Operto, Operto, Operto.com. They offer a solution basically for the whole guest management experience, from locks to noise monitoring to occupancy monitoring to thermostat control. So it costs about $30 to $40 per month per unit. So far, what I'm finding is that I think I will save that much money in the automated thermostat controls that they offer. And they have some pretty cool features like the ability to offer a early check-in and things like that based on when your cleaner is done cleaning. All of this would happen automatically behind the scenes. Right now, I'm still in a trial with them, and I'm not ready to 100% say we're definitely going to use this on all of our units. But that's kind of a sneak peek of something that we may start using. I only have it installed in one unit currently, but so far it's been a pretty good trial. They use a Yale smart lock with a August Connect system. That works great. If you want something a little simpler, we've used a Schlage Connect. Is the lock we've used previously. I'll go to our products page real quick, give you a quick look at it. And let's go ahead and move on to the next question.
Yeah, so thoughts on the possibility of short-term rentals falling under commercial tax laws in Colorado?
I think it's a real possibility that it will. I think it's going to take some time before we get to that point. For those of you that aren't sure exactly what we're talking about, so this is the lock. Sorry to interrupt, but it's called the Schlage Sense. This is one that I've used on most of my properties. It's very easy to program, and it's about $200. You can put in a whole bunch of codes in there, and easy to install. So if you're looking for something simple but without all the technology of Operto, something like this works great. You can connect this to SmartThings through Z-Wave, and you can unlock from afar or change codes from afar also. So back to short-term rentals under commercial tax laws. For those of you that aren't sure what we're talking about, basically this is, will short-term rentals be taxed the same way other businesses are taxed? Currently they are taxed, there's an extra lodging tax, but they don't pay taxes like a business does. They pay taxes like a normal individual does. So I think there is a possibility of this. I think it's probably years off before we get into that situation. But obviously, anything can happen. Legislation in general moves pretty slowly, and I think there will be a lot of people opposing this. Obviously, you have hotels and things like that that are pushing for it, but I'd be surprised to see it before too long.
Got a couple questions, Jake, related to looking for a good property, and sort of touching on walk scores here. I think it really comes down to where you're located and what your goals are, and understanding your market. Like the properties we have in Steamboat Springs are, located very close to the ski area, so they might not necessarily have the highest walk score compared to being right next to the downtown Main Street there in Steamboat, but you've got good amenities for what we're looking to do with those properties nearby, and that's sort of what drew us to be in that part of town. And I think it comes down to also what type of investment are you going for? Are you looking for something that's turnkey and that you can just hop right into and furnish and start renting out, or are you looking for a value add opportunity, which is what the properties that Jake owns in Steamboat have been major renovations to get them up to the quality that we want to for Airbnb. So this property that Jake's showing was down to the subfloor and down to the drywall, and that's something that not everyone would be willing or want to take on. So that's interesting to someone who like us who's looking for a value add, but might not necessarily be of interest to you. So it's important to understand what your goals are and what your capacity is when it comes to renovations and a potential risk with that. Jake, anything?
And I'm just looking through our reviews here. It's very common for people to comment on this property because it's right across from the bus stop. So you can see this one on the bottom here with Ben. Great place with tons of space. The deck is awesome. The location is super convenient to the ski resort base and everything located there. Also very, very easy to get to downtown via car or free bus. So I think walk score, it's a good tool to use, but it's not the only tool to use. This property is about a mile from the ski resort base, but we are right across the street from a free bus shuttle that takes you directly to the ski resort. So we often get comments that it was so convenient right across the way from the ski resort. And, I think that definitely plays into when people are looking at it, they want to be close to a particular amenity. One thing to realize with Airbnb, though, is people who stay at Airbnbs walk all walks of life. So some people may be wanting to stay near family. So say you own a property in Lakewood, Colorado. You're not particularly close to downtown. You're not particularly close to the mountains, but there's enough population density around you and not a ton of hotels. So you may find that people who are coming to visit their family that live in Lakewood would stay at your property. And I think you'll find this really in any area in the country. There's starting to become more and more demand for short-term rentals because of the amenities that they offer. And you don't have to be in a super high traffic area. You don't have to be right in downtown to be successful. If you are in downtown, you likely are going to get a higher rate than someone farther out. So let's see, let's keep going here. Looks like we have, do you do your own designing? Do you have a price per square foot for decor, decorations, etc.? I wish I was that advanced, but no, I don't have a price per square foot. The way we have done it is based on each room of the house, essentially. So I can give you a pretty good idea how much a bedroom is going to cost. how much a bathroom is going to cost, how much a kitchen is going to cost, etc. And we've tried to do our best to emulate that on our website with these essential products. And we've actually created some packages on here to try and make it a little easier for people who want kind of an easy button. But you've got kitchen bundle, and so these are kind of essential kitchen products. Then you've got small appliance bundle, and then you go down and you see, okay, we've got all the plates, glassware, mugs, etc. And we've kind of gone through those, but I don't have a specific amount per square foot. I do put a number on how much I'm going to spend on furnishing a property before I decide if it's a good opportunity. In general, it's going to cost you more than you think probably to furnish a property. I know the first property I got into, I thought, oh, maybe $3,000-4,000. I'll furnish these 3 bedrooms, 2 kitchens, 2 bathrooms, and the little things add up. Just linens and towels alone for a property like that could cost you $2,000. But if you're smart about it, you can find some great deals. We found some really great products that are easy to install, easy to put together, and it makes things a lot easier. You do need to think about your style. We do all of ours ourselves. Both of my wife and Eric's fiance help us a lot with the design. We always say that we're really good with picking stuff that works well and is efficient, but we're not always great at coordinating colors and things like that. So we need a woman's touch to help us with those things. But let's see, what else do we have here?
We've got a couple questions. Yeah. Andrew,
I'm just working my way down here, we'll try and get through as many of these as we can here. But any mentor opportunities? The steamboat market is fantastic. I found the real opportunity was in the multifamily space there. So I own a duplex and a triplex, and I found the bang for your buck was much better on a multifamily than with a condo or a single family home, because that's what most people are looking for. We don't really have any open mentor opportunities. However, we're always open to talk to people. Andrew, if you want to talk offline, shoot us an email. We'd be happy to get on the phone with you and go out to a coffee or something and chat with you about stuff, and potentially even meet you up in Steamboat if you want to take a look at my properties. But I never say never. There's always opportunity if it's beneficial for everybody. So Eric, you steer us. Where are we going?
All right. So we got a couple questions on kind of getting started here. So touching on like the most difficult hurdle that we went through getting started, and sort of how did you learn to do this? I don't know if managing people is going to count as one of that, or managing contractors. That's definitely a big challenge, and making sure that things are done the way you want them done when you want them
done. Definitely. I think there's easy ways to do this and there's hard ways to do this. I think honestly we did it the hard way because every property we have invested in has needed significant renovations before we started with the short-term rental. So if you buy a property that's in good shape, that doesn't need a ton of work, you're jumping off at a much easier point than where we did. There's a lot of technological resources out there to make your life easy. So if you're interested in it and you have an extra bedroom or something that you want to try this on, it's not that hard to get started. Honestly, if you watched our 6 webinars that are posted on the website, it'll take you about 6 hours to watch those. You probably would be good to go and start renting after those 6 hours. are you going to be 100% perfect? No, but you'll get a pretty good idea and be able to start off. So there's a lot of stuff that you will learn along the way. I think managing people is huge. That's the most important resource you have, because if your property is not cleaned well, or if your property is not maintained well, or if you are not nice to your guests when you're talking to them, you're going to have poor ratings. And ratings is what drives Airbnb. So make sure that those three things are dialed in, and the rest will fall into place. And like I said, there's great technology out there that makes your life a lot easier. How did we learn to do this? I grew up in the hospitality industry. I ran a hotel for 5 years. Slowly but surely, we learned how to do this. Basically, I'm one of those people that I just dive in, and then I kind of start experimenting and find the right thing. So I've gone through, I think, 6 property management softwares, 3 different pricing programs, 2 guidebook programs, 5 different cleaners, a couple different maintenance people. So it takes a little time and effort to find the right mix. Probably most people aren't as picky as I am, and they're probably a lot happier right off the bat with the first solution. But that's also something that's good about what I'm doing. I'm hoping to pass that information on to you so that you don't have to do that same research. You can go on our website, find those programs that I decided, as opposed to struggling through the 6 different programs that I did.
Jake's put in time trying all of them
Yeah,
out. So,
yeah, exactly. Let's see. Do we have the Sunnyside property listed on other sites other than Airbnb? I initially listed it on Furnished Finder, which specializes in travel nurses. I thought that was going to be my main market, and I had it on there as well as Zillow and HotPads and some of the other normal rental type places, Craigslist, those sorts of places, and got very few bites on it. I put it on Airbnb, and I had 2 inquiries one was for a 4-month reservation, one was for a 3-month reservation within 6 hours. So I don't know if I just got lucky, but it seems like Airbnb is a place that people are definitely looking for this. Just for some demographics, my first folks that are renting with me, they are building a house up in Evergreen, and this was the closest monthly rental that they could find to Evergreen. The second group is attending some school, some sort of trying to remember what it was, a design course or something like that. And her husband runs a software company, and they will be there for 3 months. So I think there is opportunity for this midterm rental market, but I haven't done enough research to give you great definitive answers on which are the best sites yet. We probably will list on VRBO before too long, but it's been so easy to fill on Airbnb so far, we have not done that.
Awesome. We got a couple questions here coming in about Steamboat and the mountain town seasonality. Shelly asking about occupancy rates in mountains, and I'm worried about mud seasons. I think the mud seasons are definitely spring and fall. You're definitely down quite a bit in your average daily rate that you're able to charge, and obviously with mountain communities, Christmas time. Jake's pulling up some of the numbers here on SmartBnB, but the holiday, wintertime weeks and weekends are definitely your highest dollars that you're going to get. And I think it just comes with the space of understanding that you will be down a bit in those off seasons, but if you price appropriately, you can get people who are coming up to look at some fall colors in Steamboat, or who want to just spend a little time in the mountains when it's not super busy during the holidays. So there is still demand in the spring and fall, which is not going to be as strong or quite at the same rates that you'd get in season. So that's something that I think it is nice having those 2 seasons versus, call it a beach community where you're only getting, 1 real season. So that's something that you just got to figure out if you're comfortable with versus, some of the Front Range communities, you're going to see sort of more demand spread out throughout the entire year, since there's always conferences going on, people looking to stay and visit family, some of those other draws that people have to come and rent short-term rental properties.
Definitely. And so I'm going to show you some numbers here on our properties in Steamboat. These numbers are not 100% accurate because of the way we have them listed. The properties are listed individually by each unit, and then you could rent the whole property as one. So this is just the 5 individual units. You can see that over this past year, we've had a 52% occupancy rate. That is skewed lower also because I've been doing a window and siding project for the past 2.5 months on 3 of my units. So what I have seen over the past couple of years is that we can average about 60 to 65% occupancy year round in Steamboat Springs. That is significantly higher than what any of the websites out there will tell you is common. But we've tried to position ourselves well with pricing and the amenities that we offer. One thing that we do a little differently is we allow pets at our units. If you've looked at the statistics, something like a quarter to a third of the people in the US like to travel with pets. And I think it's something like 5 to 10% of rentals allow pets. So that's a good addition that you can do. We've also added some really nice amenities. So I feel like our properties look really good. We have a lot of 5-star reviews. All of those things play into a higher occupancy rate. So if you run your properties well, I think you can do well above the average occupancy rate. I think Steamboat, it runs average around 35 to 40% is what you'll find online.
And we've got a quick follow-up question regarding the pets and pet fees. So what we're doing for that, correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, $10 a night per pet under
Correct.
50 pounds?
Correct. Yeah. One thing that I found is you have to be very specific with the pets. Initially, we just said pets were okay, and there were a couple times where there were 3-4 dogs in a 1-bedroom property, and cleaning up after that was not an easy task. Not that they did any damage necessarily. It was just that you have dog hair that is very, very hard to deal with. So we now do 1 pet per unit under 50 pounds. We will do 2 pets if deemed appropriate, basically. So if it's a large unit and it's not going to affect other guests, they agree to all of our policies, etc., then sometimes I will allow a second pet, but I do charge $10 per night per pet.
So we got a couple questions coming in, Jake, on one actually that came up in the Q&A, asking about how much do you pay for property insurance. I'm sort of assuming that's for asking about versus a traditional homeowner's policy from Christine.
Definitely more than your traditional property insurance. I'll give you some example numbers. I think that at my duplex, which is a total of 3 beds and 2 baths, I pay about $2,500 per year. It's a combo policy of commercial liability insurance and traditional homeowners insurance. So it covers me on both of those fronts. I believe I have either $1 or $2 million of liability insurance. So basically it's combining 2 different types of policies into one. I feel like that's really worth it for me because I don't have to worry about if there was a major incident at the property, and I'm getting sued or something like that. My insurance should be able to cover that, as opposed to coming back to me, my personal liability policy, going through my LLC, anything like that. The insurance company we use is called Proper Insurance, and they've been really helpful for us. I would say that compared to regular homeowners insurance, it might be 1.5 to 2 times what you would normally pay. There's a lot of other options out there. You can do it by the night. There's a couple called Slice Insurance and forgetting the other one. But they'll give you a policy basically by the nights that you have rented, as opposed to something that's always on, which is what my policy is.
Was Proper Insurance the other one, Jake?
Well, Proper is the one that that's the complete policy. So that's the homeowners and the liability, and that applies all the time on my properties, as opposed to that nightly.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know Lloyd's of London is one of the companies that underwrites those nightly policies, if that helps anybody.
Lloyd's of London is also the one that underwrites Proper Insurance.
There we go. They're taking it over.
They're in the space. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So what's next?
All right. So we've got let's see here. Andrew wondering about finding a good attorney for this space. I'm not sure if you want to give your guy a shout out, Jake, or
yeah, so I use a local real estate attorney in Denver. His name is Peter McFarland. He works with Long Law Group. They do accounting, real estate attorney, and I believe estate planning. But he's been really great helping me set up my LLCs and answer those hard questions about what do I need to do, what don't I need to do. And I wouldn't say they're specifically experts on short-term rentals, but they're definitely experts on real estate. They definitely have clients that do short-term rentals, but probably most of them do long-term rentals as opposed to short-term rentals. So if you're in the Denver area, that's definitely a good place to start. Outside of that, I don't have a great recommendation.
All right. And Lars is asking about tips on balancing living in a unit part-time and hosting part-time. In other words, how easy is it to separate spaces so when you're not there, you don't have to worry about people going through your stuff. So this is something that, I've talked to a lot of homeowners about when I was with that national management company, since a lot of people, that's a, sort of easy way to get into it and test the waters. I think it's important to consider the guest experience and making sure that when people are coming to stay with you at your property, do they feel like they're invading your home and there's tons of family photos on the walls and it doesn't feel like they can get comfortable there? Or is it set up in a way where you can feel comfortable living there and someone can stay and not feel like they're, they've got pictures of you looking down on them from the mantle. So it's definitely important to make sure that basically there's no personal effects. So you're not leaving clothes in the closet or, any tchotchkes you have out that you're really concerned about. Keeping it nice and clean and tidy, as you're seeing from like the pictures that Jake's got on the screen right now. It's like people want to feel comfortable in this space. And I've stayed at some ones personally where it felt like I was staying in the kids' room and there's stuffed animals all over the place and it feels weird. And you don't want your guests to have to deal with that, and you don't want to have to worry about your stuff getting, gone through it all by a guest who is just trying to find a place to put their clothes. So I think
we had that great interview with your friend who does that. Is that on the website?
That is on if you go to the past webinars tab under free education or free training, excuse me, scroll down to the bottom. We have all of our YouTube videos. And this is one of my good
There
friends.
it is.
Uh,
So this video with Alyssa Weber renting your primary residence on Airbnb. We had a really good interview with her. Don't mind me. I didn't realize we were doing video on it, so you'll see me doing all sorts of weird exercises in the background. But don't mind that. But Alyssa had some really great insights on this. She's been doing it for, I think, was it 4 years that she's been renting her
been
place?
doing, yeah, for several years now. She bought that place in 13 and started,
Yeah.
2014.
Yeah, and she had some great tips though about you don't have to feel like you have to take all your photos off the wall and things like that. But if there is anything that's a family heirloom or anything like that, I think they said that they had a locked closet or two that they put certain things in that they didn't want people, to get into. And that's definitely would be my suggestion as well, is put a lock on a closet or two, put the important personal belongings in there, and then just realize that they're going to be in your space for the rest of it. If there's anything that you don't want them to see or to go through, probably put it in that closet.
Yeah, great call, Jake. I'd tell the space that we had that on there. So,
Yeah.
and Shelly was asking, what are you paying for your investor money, and are you using retirement funds for that?
Uh, it is not retirement funds per se. Um, I have kind of an interesting arrangement because the main investor that I have is my mom, and so we have a little bit of an unconventional agreement because she shares in the profit as well as gets a monthly stipend. I think as far as hard money, or personal investors that you're going to find out there, uh, you're going to be hard pressed to find someone who's going to give you a rate less than 8 to 10% for something like this. There are some companies out there that are starting to lend in the short-term rental space. Civic is one of them that I've interfaced with, and SoCal. Ooh, man, I'm trying to think of what the name is. SoCaltra are two that I have interfaced with, and then there's also Host Financial. So if you don't have the money to make the initial investment, all of those are going to require some sort of a down payment on your part, likely 10 to 25% of the total cost of whatever you're doing. So I don't think there's anyone that's just going to hand you 100% financing for these types of deals, but there definitely are some resources out there for financing if you're looking for that.
Cool. Let's see here. We've got a couple questions related to sort of the hands-on side of things. Andrew asking how often we're actually having to go up to Steamboat in person to put out fires, and that's
Yeah,
definitely
it's a sore subject right now because this siding project I'm doing was supposed to be a hands-off project, and I have been up there, I think, each of the past 5 weeks. So when I am not doing a project on the property, I basically have it set up so I don't ever have to go up there to put out fires. I am a firefighter by trade, so fires is a bad word in my terminology. So basically, everything is set up so that if there is any sort of an issue, my maintenance guy will respond 24 hours a day and take care of any issue that occurs. Uh, we did have one major plumbing issue where basically we had to move a person out of the unit because of sewage flooding that unit. Um, and that was a situation where I had to get involved on the phone. I had to book them another unit. I had to talk to them and make sure they were okay. My biggest advice on something like this is plan ahead for everything bad that can happen. Make sure that you have things in place with whether it's your cleaning person, your maintenance person, so that someone can respond to the property if needed. Uh, it's fairly rare that that is necessary, but realize that in our tech world, uh, if the internet is down, that's an emergency for people. If the TV doesn't work, that is an emergency for people. So do make plans for someone that can get to your property and deal with those sorts of things. Um, I have found that 95 to 99% of those things can be dealt with over the phone. Um, if there's a service available with your internet and cable provider to have a managed router, it's worthwhile. They can reset the router from afar, as opposed to someone having to go to the property and unplug it. So little hacks like that will save you a lot of that driving over to your property. But there is always a potential for, plumbing problem or something like that. Make sure you have someone on call that will be able to respond, and apologize profusely if anything happens while your guests are there, and do what you would want to be done if you were in that situation. So for example, with the plumbing situation, um, it was about 10 o'clock at night. Within about 25 minutes, I had them booked at another property. They were moved out and at that property comfortable for one night. I then paid for their entire stay, basically refunded all their money and paid for their stay at another unit, because it was a sewage plumbing issue, something that I would hope would never happen to anybody on vacation. If it's a minor issue, give them $20 back. If it's a more major issue, give them $50 or $100 back. Apologize profusely. You'll be amazed how far apologizing, just saying, I'm so sorry for what happened. What can I do to make this okay for you? Most of the time, that's all people want to hear. So these things are few and far between.
Yeah. All right. So we've got let's see here.
I see Gail was asking about the company I said to have them get into the property. That was Operto, Operto. That's the technology company with the access and temperature control, all that. Schlage was the lock that we have used before that. It's a Schlage Connect. And let's see, what else?
We've got one more sort of on the operational side. Are the cleaners doing laundry at the property, or do you use a service for the laundry?
That was interesting. I have a laundry room on site at one of my properties, and I assumed that would be an amenity for my cleaners and that they would want to do the laundry there. Basically, they said they would prefer to take it to the laundromat because they would be able to do all of the laundry for all the units that they clean at once, as opposed to do 1-2 units at a time. So they basically do not use the laundry at the property. But I thought that would be a big amenity. I think if you have smaller units that you could do all of the laundry in a single load or something like that, they may try and do the laundry while they clean. But in my experience, it has basically been that you have at least 2 full sets of everything, and the cleaner will put the new stuff on the beds, the towels, all of that, while they're at the property, and then they're going to take the laundry with them and do that either at a laundromat or have a cleaning service do it.
All right. So I think the last question on here that we haven't touched on yet is there anything really wish you knew before you got started?
There's a lot of things I wish I knew before I got started. Hard to sum that up in a few short words here, but I think honestly, there's so much information out there on the web these days. If you do a little research, you can learn a lot. Don't be afraid to use technology. It will help you like crazy. My number one suggestion for anyone who decides to do Airbnb is use some sort of an automation software for your messages. Even if you're only renting one room in your house, it's worth it. We use a program called Smart B&B. It automatically sends an email every time someone books. It sends an email automatically 2 days before people check in. It sends an email 4 hours after they check in to check on them, make sure everything's okay. It sends an email right before they check out to make sure everything was okay again, and remind them, please leave your towels on the floor, please clean out the fridge, please take out the trash, etc. All of those things, and then it sends them a reminder to leave a review. That single service alone is worth well more than the $20 a month that it will cost you. That would be probably my number one. Is if you're going to do one thing, use an automation software, set it up right from the beginning, and it just makes your life so much easier. I would try and not make things complicated from the beginning, like I did. Don't decide to buy a property and renovate and furnish and do all these things for the first time. Um, this was not my first time renovating a property, so I was familiar with that already. But on my schedule for my initial property, I think I had about 2 or 3 days to furnish the property, as far as putting furniture together and hanging blinds, drapes, taking everything out of the boxes, all of that. It took me weeks. Don't underestimate the amount of work that it takes to furnish a property. Obviously now we've dialed those things in a lot better. We have good lists. We're familiar with what we need, but just realize that it is going to take some work. Don't put yourself up against a wall with your first guest checking in before your unit is really ready. Getting a 5-star review from your first 3 guests is probably the most important thing you can do to have success on Airbnb.
Awesome.
Anything to add, Eric?
I think just in terms of what you're getting into, just understanding that it's not something where you can totally set it and forget it, that you do, you really are in the hospitality business. And I think sometimes that gets lost, when you're crunching a bunch of numbers and you're getting all excited about it. And, just don't forget that there's the human element, and that people are spending their vacation time and their dollars to come stay at your property, and make sure that you're providing them a great experience. And that's, really treated as a business and not just as a kind of a hobby thing. And I think that's, what really separates, as it continues to grow, the professionalization of how you run your property and running it as a business is going to be, continue to separate the people who are doing really well with it and the people who are not as successful. So I think that's a important thing to keep in mind. And I think that's
Yeah.
I think that's
All right. I think we've run out of questions. Just a quick reminder for you. If you're interested in finding out more about our future webinars or anything like that, we try and send out reminders and things like that. We do have a Facebook page. It's / Master Vacation Rentals. So facebook.com. Oh, there it is. So Eric is showing that there. If you enjoyed the webinar today, if you got value out of this, we would really appreciate if you post a review on there. You can see the review tab on the left-hand side there. We would really appreciate that, just to help us kind of professionalize ourselves in the industry here. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email. Website is mastervacationrentals.com. If you want to watch any of those past webinars or check out any of those articles, products, or services. Hope to see you on the next one. We try and do this once a month. So hope you have a great day, and thanks so much for tuning in.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.